if for whatever reason China cancels Apple's export license tomorrow, it's not like we can just start making iPhones here. We have no idea how to make them. Or even if we have the idea, like even if Apple has the experiential know-how, we can't execute the plans at all.
And I want you to explain why that is.
There's so many reasons. I mean, there was an analyst who was quoted a month ago, and I thought this is a pretty good quote, and yet it doesn't even really come close to the reality. So let me explain. So the analyst said, there are so many people working on iPhones that it would be like if the city of Boston, 500,000 people, just gave up what they were doing and they all started working on iPhone production. Okay? That's a great quote, except that what it doesn't account for is that what China really relies on is a floating population. So it's actually more like the 500,000 people of Boston would work on iPhone for a couple weeks, and then the entire city would get up and go to Milwaukee or something and work on some other product, right? So like not only do we not have the density of population, we don't have the dynamism of the population.
Okay, I want to push maybe a little bit on that word dynamism. Isn't it also the servitude of that population? Maybe that word is too strong for you, but
yeah.
You know, most Americans, even people that are willing to work very, very hard, do not expect to work 14, 15 hours a day in a factory with no weekend.
No, and the line I like to use is that not only do Americans not want to do these jobs, the Chinese don't want to do these jobs. So I have this stunning example. I think it's around 2014, and I'm quoting myself in the Free Press because I put it here. But there's a Pegatron facility that had a standing state of 100,000 workers, but they were losing 25,000 workers a month. So they were hiring 25,000 workers a month. I mean, good luck competing with that sort of dynamism. Right? We just don't have factories that size, but we don't have factories where we would even have 25,000 new people to go through. So I've got all these internal documents about it, for instance, and like the average worker was staying at the company less than 65 days,
wow.
Right? So the churn is absolutely amazing, and you can only have that churn if the population is sort of like, again, not to get too wonky, their residence is in the rural China in the West. And they're not allowed to raise their children in a city like Shenzhen or Suzhou or Shanghai. And so they're working in these factories on a temporary basis, and then they go back to see their children, sometimes only once a year at Chinese New Year. But again, so like not only can we not replicate that, we wouldn't want to replicate that, right? And that's what makes it so hard to compete with, because in addition to the density of the population and the low wages and stuff that we can't compete with, like at a sort of philosophical level, this isn't what you and I would want our kids doing. Right, and it only sort of is possible because of a certain desperation on the part of, even though China is a very rich country, there are still hundreds of millions of people that have just a high school education and are willing to do these jobs. So given that trade agreements don't really have like environmental standards that are codified across the world, or labor standards that are codified across the world, China is just able to compete on a level that we're just never going to be able to grapple with.